Hey all, it's Frankie here. Today I'm going to be talking about Some Like It Hot, which is a movie that I have loved for the last 10 odd years. I've been watching it for ages. Yeah, it's a really good classic movie and I'm excited to talk about it. I watched it again last night, randomly out of the blue, and I feel like talking about it. So that's what we're going to do today. Before I get started on that, if you would like to see what I get up to on social media, here is my Instagram. I just basically post pictures of myself and the things that I find intriguing in the world, so if you want to check that out, you're very welcome to. If you would like to see other YouTube content that I've either created or will create in the future, you can go ahead and click that bell icon and get subscribed, or just go browse through my video catalog and see if anything jumps out at you. I know I'm doing two video critiques back to back, but I'm just kind of in the mood to talk about movies recently. I've been daydreaming about going back to college and finishing my animation degree, so it's getting me really into critically thinking about movies and TV shows and documentaries and media in general. So I'm just kind of in that headspace, and that's why I want to talk about Some Like It Hot today, because it's one of those movies that just sparks immediate joy in me whenever I watch it. I find it absolutely hilarious and a little bit clever, a little bit stupid, but some comedy kind of requires that. Anyway, I'm going to read off my notes, throw up some pictures and reference photos off to the side just so you understand what I'm getting at, and yeah, let's jump right on into the critique. So, Some Like It Hot is a movie that is set in 1929 in Chicago. So, it's a black and white movie. It was shot in, I believe it was the late 50s. I'm too lazy to look it up, but I'll put up on the screen right here. That's the year that it was released. Anyway, this movie is set in Chicago in 1929, and it starts out with very intense scenes. So it's a group of gangsters, and they're inside a hearse, and they're sitting around a coffin. It looks like they're about to go to a funeral, but then the police show up and shoot out the back of their vehicle, and we find out that it was full of booze. And this leads us to the main characters, because the people that were in the hearse, the gang members, were taking booze to one of the underground clubs that used to exist back in Prohibition times when alcohol was illegal. So we meet our main characters, Joe and Jerry, who work in the band. They each have two different names throughout the movie, so I'm just going to be using different names depending on what they're wearing, what persona they're going by, our main characters. So I won't always be referring to them by Joe and Jerry, just FYI. The first things that we learn about our main characters, because they're having a discussion about money, is that they suck at dealing with money, and they are really bad at taking care of themselves because they owe money all over town. And Joe wants to bet their first week of paychecks on dog races. So they're a little bit dumb, good to know, but they are very respectful and observant, because Jerry notices the cop that's actually come into the pub or the club and is tapping his cigar with his police badge, and he's like, oh, we better leave because we're about to get fucked by the police raiding this illegal club. They were just very observant and resourceful to hide on the fire escape and get away, even though... Where was I going with that? I think I lost my train of thought, because I have no idea what I was getting at with that. Whatever, moving on to the next point. One thing I did really like about this movie that I noticed in the beginning is when the two of them, once they've escaped from the club and they're looking for jobs again the next day, and they've hawked their winter coats, even though it's Chicago in the winter. Do you want to die? Are you stupid? You're gonna die of frostbite if you do that shit. Anyway, I love the fact that Jerry was so ready to just be like, yeah, let's dress like girls. Let's go on a train and perform in this girls' band. That's not that hard. Why not? Even though it's 1929 or the 50s, which being gay was still illegal and cross-dressing was very illegal. So the fact that he's just yeah, let's do it, why not, is so nice to see. it's nice to see representation of people who are just open and not, they don't like stigmatize cross-dressing. The movie progresses and Joe and Jerry go to like borrow their the girl's car to go and perform at a gig, and they witness the mass shooting of, it was the northern part of this like gang that they call the Italian opera lovers. I'm pretty sure it's just the mafia. But they have a rivalry between the North and the South. The South, which is Spatz and his guys, they shoot Charlie and his guys. And Joe and Jerry witness that and then almost get shot, but they like manage to run away just in time for Jerry's, they call it a bow fiddle, but I'm pretty sure it's just a bass, like a stand-up bass. They shoot his bass with like a line of bullets, which actually becomes kind of a plot point late in the movie. I'm gonna switch now to their like new given names. So Joe, this guy, is now Josephine, which is pretty easy because Joe, Josephine. But then there's Jerry, this guy, who goes by Daphne. So I'm gonna be switching in between their names. Now they like are women because they witnessed the mass shooting. They decide to take the gig in the girls band and they clean themselves up. They like try to look as feminine as possible with padding and shaving their legs and, you know, putting on lipstick and all the wardrobe and everything. And it's so funny to me because on the train platform, Daphne is having second thoughts about becoming part of this this girl's band. And because he's like having problems walking around in his heels and he's like, it's so drafty, oh my goodness, I feel naked. But that's so strange to me because it's like, dude, you witnessed a mass shooting between two factions of a gang in Chicago in Prohibition times. I'm surprised that they like made it through the night after they witnessed the mass shooting versus even like getting onto the train platform, because gangs in Chicago don't fuck around. Hardcore, they hardcore. Don't need to deal with that. I'm surprised that Daphne has like second thoughts and is like, oh, I don't know if we should be doing this, because it's like, did you think you were gonna survive any other way? You wouldn't be able to get out of town unless you literally dressed up as a woman, because they wouldn't be looking for a woman. Like, what are you thinking, dude? So then, as the movie progresses along, Daphne and Josephine get on the train, and we actually finally meet our like third main character, because the three of them are like the three main characters. We meet Marilyn Monroe's character, Sugar, and the guys, they actually save her from being kicked off the train because her flask fell out of her stocking, and Daphne was like, that's my flask, like, don't worry about it, even though it's illegal to have alcohol. And if Sugar had been caught with booze again, she wouldn't have been able to be part of the band. So I'm very happy that they like bonded. But also there's like a moment that happens around that little introduction to Sugar that I love so much. It's the line where Josephine and Daphne are like getting onto the train car. They're putting their luggage away. They're like surveying their new surroundings. And Josephine like grabs hold of Daphne because Daphne is about to like hit the emergency brake. And Daphne's like, you tore one of my chests. I don't know why, but that particular phrasing just like cracks me the up. Boobs? Breasts? There's so many options. Why did you go with chests? It's so good. It's just random and I love it. Then they have the first night in the train leading to Florida and their final destination. It's really funny to me because, Josephine takes Daphne's ladder from their sleeping carriage so that Daphne won't have any of the girls up in his bunk, because Josephine is afraid that he's gonna like blow their cover by, you know, trying to hook up with one of the girls. And Daphne ends up having this like blowout, boozy party. And it looked like there was 20 people in this double bunk. I don't know how they were able to breathe in that tiny space, but it also kind of looked incredibly fun. But yeah, I love that party, even though I have no idea how they were able to make so much noise and yet get away with having that party and not wake up the like manager of the band and what was it, Sweet Sue, who were sleeping right down the train car from this like loud ass boozy party. Did they knock themselves out with tranquilizers? Like, I don't know what's going on. They wake up when the train like is brought to a screeching halt by the emergency brake being pulled, but they don't wake up to a whole bunch of drunk people just like talking and singing and making a lot of noise. Like, it's very convenient. So then the band arrives in Florida, which is their final destination for the concerts that we're going to be holding at this resort. All the girls in the band are getting out of their little trolley and like making their way into the resort, and I don't know why it like made me physically cringe when Daphne was holding all the instruments and he like handed them over to one of the creepy billionaires or millionaires. I don't know, were there billionaires back in the 50s? Anyway, I don't really care. Daphne like hands all the instruments over and he whacked the bass or bow fiddle. He whacked the neck against the door frame. You can hear the cracking sound in the movie, and it like hurt my soul to hear that sound, because you just should not treat instruments that way. They deserve a little bit more respect and love and not to be whacked around. So I was yelling at my computer at this fictional billionaire being like, "What is wrong with you, sir? Why would you ever do that to somebody else's property?" Could seriously damage an instrument by doing that, so. It is strange to me that Daphne and Josephine didn't talk about the fact that Josephine was trying to be super manipulative and get Sugar to fall in love with this fake millionaire persona that Josephine had created with like the fake resort clothes and basically borrowing an actual millionaire's yacht, the one that whacked the bow fiddle. Josephine basically steals his yacht and steals his life, kind of, just to make Sugar believe that millionaires aren't good people either. Because there was that whole speech where Sugar was like, "Oh, I've always dated saxophone players and they treat me like dirt, and you know, just want like one thing, and once I catch feelings, then it's over." And she was like, "I want to try and catch me a millionaire that's like wearing glasses and sensitive." Yeah, it's strange to me that Josephine, Joe, and Daphne didn't like talk about how Josephine was trying to con Sugar. They're best friends, they live together. It is implied that they know each other really well. Why wouldn't you talk to your best friend about something like this? Like trying to have a fake relationship with a girl just to get her to change her mind about a type of person? I don't know, it's weird. Daphne just like comes across Josephine on the beach when Sugar's talking to him and is like, "Oh, what's going on? Like, this is so strange to find you sitting randomly in somebody else's clothes on the beach pretending to be somebody else." Like, if one of my best friends did something like that, I would be seriously concerned and not say anything in front of the other party, but like question them later. Daphne doesn't seem to like question Joe on their motives, which is very strange to me. In this movie, there was like 2 different separate occasions in which Marilyn Monroe sang in this movie, and both times I can't help myself but like pause the movie and sing along with her. I actually like paused and rewinded a couple of times her singing just so I could like memorize the lyrics a little bit, because it's so fun for me to sing along with people that have like really beautiful voices, because A, I love singing, and B, I feel like it makes you better to sing with people that are good at singing. Also, it's just so nice to hear Marilyn Monroe sing. I love her voice. I like the quavering tremble that she's able to like add into some of her high notes. It's such a lovely quality to the song, and I like to try and see if I can imitate her. Just like a fun little challenge for myself. So then as the movie keeps going on, Joe takes Sugar out, like, as pretending to be a millionaire, and takes Sugar out onto the millionaire's yacht and basically is like pretending that that's his life. And that whole situation where she is on the boat with him, it creeps me out so much how much he's lying and manipulating the situation and trying to just like play with her emotions by pretending to be this impotent man. Basically saying, I haven't had a sexual experience before in my life because my heart was pumped full of Novocaine and broken when my first girlfriend fell off a cliff at the Grand Canyon. Which, yes, that's traumatizing, but it's a super manipulative way to try to get somebody to be part of a relationship. Even though it is super manipulative, it's also very obvious. So I'm kind of surprised that Sugar didn't see through Joe's ruse. But, you know, I'm not gonna blame her in this. He was in the wrong for trying to manipulate the entire situation. And the fact that he's so good at lying and does it, like, on the spot easily scares me. And it makes me not want to date or meet strangers ever. So then, very, very coincidentally, because the plot just needs to be steered by an expert hand, the Friends of the Italian Opera, or the literal mafia from Chicago, shows up at the exact same resort that Daphne and Joe are at. And I'm like, why and how? I don't know. Out of every single resort in Florida, out of every single resort in the entire country, they pick the one that the two fugitives are trying to hide out at and stay at. Like, what are the goddamn odds of that? Anyway, it's really just to throw some tension into the movie, which is super obvious, but you know, it gets the job done. It steers the story along. I just wish they hadn't been so heavy-handed with like throwing their characters together in situations, because it's like, kind of been there, done that. Josephine and Daphne do really suck at like attempting to trying to attempt to escape from the mafia guys, because they get, I think, somewhat recognized in the elevator, pack their bags, and then try to escape out the balcony, but again, epic coincidence, they manage to shimmy down the banister right outside the windows of the room that the gangster guys are hanging out in. And I'm just like, really? There's so many coincidences, and it's just like, that wouldn't happen in real life. So it kind of pulls me out of the movie for that to keep happening, where they're just like, the writers of the script were just like throwing the characters together in situations, even though there's no way that they would run into each other that much in actual reality. This was a super random detail, but I don't know why. It's like a tiny moment in the movie that cracks me up and has nothing to do with the main characters. It's this moment where the mafia people are putting together this giant cake to put an assassin inside the cake and kill Spatz, the one mafia guy that's been chasing Joe and Daphne. And one of the guys that's helping put the cake together says, don't like mess up the cake. I want to take a slice home to my kids. And I just want to slap some sense into this person and go, why are you going to feed murder cake to your children? Like, what's the thinking there? This is such an interesting parent, because why would you ever feed your child a cake that a murderer sat inside of and then shot holes in at least, I think it was 5 or 6 different men? That's weird. I just realized that it's a Trojan assassin birthday cake. That's funny, I like that. So then Spatz gets killed and all of his men get killed, but Joe and Daphne were actually under the table when they got murdered. I don't know why they decided to jump out from under the table at that exact moment, because if they just stayed put and waited for the dinner to be over, everybody would have left and then nobody would be going after them. But they run out seconds after Spatz was shot. and a whole bunch of guys like run after them, and then this big chase scene ensues, and this is like the very end of the movie. This big chase scene ensues. I believe Josephine was trying to run away from some of the guys, and he hears Sugar singing in the main ballroom area where they perform at night. And she's singing this super sad song about like being done with love, and like, if I can't have you, then I really don't want anybody else. And he, dressed as a woman, mind you, Josephine is dressed as a woman. He goes up, and she like ends her singing. He goes up and kisses Sugar in the middle of a crowded ballroom in 1929. So, for anybody who doesn't have context, the entire room just witnessed two women kissing on a brightly lit stage. And my little gay heart is so happy for that. I love that they put that in the movie. I love that like all of those people have no context for what's going on. It's just a wonderfully gay moment. And Marilyn Monroe actually acts kind of excited about it, which makes me even more happy about that moment. I'm just like, oh, yes, we need more of that in TV and movies. It's so refreshing to see that they put something like that in a movie that was released in the 50s. So at the very end of the movie, it's basically they're still like mad dashing, and Josephine, Daphne, Sugar, and the millionaire, I think his name is called Osgood, who's the love interest for Daphne. They all jump into a speedboat, and they're like, you know, trying to get to the yacht so that they can escape from the bad guys. And Sugar and Josephine actually, you know, kind of making out and doing their thing in the back. They like each other, they fall in love, even though he tried to talk her out of it because he's like, I'm just one of those no good bum saxophone players you've been running from your whole life. And she's like, lay it on thick, and just kisses him and is like, I don't care. And then the most iconic moment, the very end of this movie, it's the most iconic moment, is when Osgood and Daphne are having a conversation in the front of the same speedboat, and Daphne is basically like, I can't marry you. I'm not a natural blonde. I smoke all the time, and trying to make all these excuses. And then at the very end, he says, oh, all right, I'll tell you the real reason. I'm a man. And Osgood, the millionaire, literally just sits there and is like, nobody's perfect. And that's the ending line of the movie. And it just is so hilarious to me. The look on Daphne's face is just like, what do I do with that information? Like, he's okay marrying a man in the 50s when that was illegal. I just love the representation in this movie, and the fact that they have such like open-mindedness, and there's no stigma towards cross-dressing or homosexuality or any of that kind of thing. There's nothing to imply that they have any like ill intention towards queer people in this movie. And it's honestly kind of an iconic trans film. It's one of the first kind of cross-dressing related films that was positive towards gay people and trans people. So I don't know, this movie has always kind of stuck with me, even though back in the day when I first started watching this as a kid, I didn't know anything about the whole trans and LGBTQIA plus community and the undertones of this movie and what that meant. But as I've like grown older and I've learned about my own trans identity, this movie has kind of become like a good, somewhat wholesome symbol of support and love and acceptance of trans and queer people. It makes me so excited that some movies were willing to break like codes against such things. I'm pretty sure that this was one of those movies they actually had to kind of submit the screenplay at a different time to try and avoid the Hays Code and actually be allowed to make this movie, because it was such a controversial kind of movie that the studio itself was not going to go through with it. The artists who created this film fought for what they believed in, and they wanted this film to be made, and I don't know, it just kind of warms my heart that people are willing to fight to make the LGBTQIA community feel included even 70 years ago, when just being yourself was illegal. This movie always makes me happy. If I'm feeling blue, this is one of those movies that's always good for me to watch because it's just gonna lift my spirits. So I hope you go check this out. This has been really fun for me to take some critical thinking time and look at this movie and, you know, just watch it again for fun. So I hope you go and check this out. I hope you all are doing well and taking care of yourselves, wearing a mask and maintaining social distance, you know. I'm hearing good things about vaccines, but you never know. Still keeping my fingers crossed that everything's gonna turn out okay in the end. We shall see. And I will see you in my next YouTube video and down in the comments below. Have a nice one, y'all.